All right, everybody can be seated. We'll get this started. First of all, there are voting members. You have the agenda in front of you. Do I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to go to the official business. In compliance with paragraph 261 of the settlement agreement, the community outreach and public information program shall require at least one semi-annual meeting in each area command that is open to the public. I might add, this was one of our concerns that we addressed to the judge. We want to know who the compliance coordinator was and when this meeting was supposed to be. So that's how it all came up in August with all the CPCs. During the meeting, APD officers from the area command and APD compliance coordinator, and this is Bill Slauson sitting up here, that is the compliance coordinator, Warren and his designee shall inform the public about the requirement of this agreement. Update the public on APD's progress meeting these requirements and address areas of community concern.
Did you write down all your questions? I'm ready for any questions. Barbara.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Sure, I'm Bill Slauson. I'm the Executive Director for the Administrative Support Bureau of the Department. As Selena mentioned earlier, that position I was appointed that position to manage this whole process. So there's a bunch of divisions like planning and fiscal and personnel that they rolled under my position so that we could make quick moves to respond to the demands of the settlement. I'm here. I work for the department.
So really, Director Swanson really is the key point in overseeing all of our progress. Is APD submitting the proper data to the monitor? Selena, have you finished this project yet? Or, Commander, where do we stand in this development process? So he's the coordinator when it comes to the Department of Justice in future things.
Okay, what you mentioned about the cameras lasting 8 hours, and the new policy of how many policemen are going to go to the 12-hour shift?
All of our patrol officers are going to that 12-hour shift. All
Is that the 412?
Yes.
All 412 are going to go to 12. Okay, so there is a major concern if the camera runs out. So the question is, do they have the camera on all the time? Like if they're in the car, do they have it turned off? And so then there's a good chance that the camera could last their 12-hour shift. But if it doesn't, what are you going to do?
Right. The officers are being issued 2 batteries, right? So that way there's at least 16 hours of battery coverage.
Okay.
The policy also dictates when they're supposed to be using their cameras, makes it a little more clear. It's citizen contacts, traffic stops, right? But you'd be more familiar.
Anything where you think the complaint could arise.
I can't hear you.
Anywhere where you think the complaint could arise. So they really revamped it, assessed it, reassessed it, went out to you all for evaluation of it. We received feedback, and they created a product that I think works very well to not only protect you all, but protect us as well. So, like Selena stated, the battery packs if it's a window, they can switch it out and charge it. So that's how we do that.
Good.
Another question. Where did the 12-hour shift come from?
So that came through a suggestion by Dr. Weiss, who created a staffing study. When, per the settlement agreement, we were required to do a staffing study and then create within 6 months of that study being done, a staffing plan. Now it was up to APD to take the recommendations that were reported in that study and decide, well, do we want to adopt this how are we gonna look at that? Here's what the data shows. So he looked at what types of calls officers were taking, when the high volume times were, so when you saw the most calls, whether that was days of the week, time of the day, Fridays at 3 p.m. to 4 a.m. are super high volume times for APD. So what types of calls? Because some types of calls need 2 officers. You need to have maybe 4 officers. And then some other calls can just take 1 officer. So what do the resources really look like? Which are the busier areas of the city and where do those resources need to be? And then it was up on the department to come up with a plan. And because of our current staffing number, Chief made the decision that the 12-hour shift made the most sense for what resources we had available. I think the proposals were a 5/8 shift, which is what most of them are currently working now, right? The 12-hour shift. Was there a third recommendation?
In the staffing study.
Yeah. So that's kind of what was looked at.
Selena, I could add on a little bit to that.
So more and more agencies are turning to the 12-hour shift. Dr. Weiss is a proponent of it, but more and more are turning to that because of the need for officers to have more downtime. So 12 hours is a long time to be on shift. But if you remember that if they're working 12 hours a day, then the way we have it broken up is they work 3 12-hour shifts a week, which means on that first week they have 4 days off, right? On that second week they come back and they work their 3 12-hour shifts, and then they have 1 8-hour shift. So they still have 3 days off and a short shift. So it gives the officers more time off, more time to spend with their families, more time to decompress, and really enjoy that aspect of their life. Where with 8-hour shifts, a lot of times they're working overtime, 10 hours, 12 hours even sometimes. They're not getting that chance to relax. And the union and the officers overwhelmingly support it.
I think it's important to note too that it's something we're going to try. We've never tried it before. If it fails and it's not working and the officers are too tired or it's not quite getting calls answered quickly, say it increases call times or call wait times, we can revisit it. But we've never tried it. We're going to try it, see what happens, and then look at the data after a trial period.
I think that all of the meetings I've gone to, I have never heard anyone talk about court time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people in the public realize that a police officer leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning shift goes home and has to be in court at 9 o'clock and can be in court for hours and then start a shift again at 3. So I think that impacts a lot of people.
We were just talking.
That's a concern of mine.
Yeah, we were just talking about that at the Northeast Community Policing Council because one of the members had brought up there that for graveyard officers that maybe there should be some form of night court because that's when their working shift is, right? And that's at least a community discussion that we were having at that council. Does APD have any say over when court is held? No. But when there are voices in the community that are able to say, well, this is concerning to us, or we're worried about that, or this is a good idea, then we can work together to kind of help that process along. I think it would be up to you guys to answer this more, but that the 12-hour shifts might give a little bit more leeway for that, because at least you're on and you're still kind of within that realm.
I can talk about this 12-hour shift thing because I worked graveyard night shift as an RN in the hospital for 20 years. 12-hour shifts. And there needs to be something in that policy that an officer, when they are off between those 2 night shifts, they are OFF off. Period.
So one of the
And this is a big thing, particularly even with nurses, that you're expected to go to a class in between 2 12-hour shifts. No. It's dangerous.
One of the things with the courts that we have done and that we're getting better at is the courts actually have access to the officers' schedules. They don't always abide by it, but they can see when the officers are off, or when the officers can have a military leave, or maybe have a sick leave or vacation planned. And we're really trying to work with that court system to get them to utilize that system much more efficiently. Because they have access, it's there, and we are trying to hold the court accountable and not
They
schedule.
should not be allowed to schedule.
1, 2, 3, okay? And
Is this 12-hour shift still going to be daytime swing and graveyard and just have overlap? You're just have 2 shifts a day?
no, just day and night.
Well, 3 area commands will. So the southeast, the northeast, and the valley will have a split shift coming in to kind of overlap due to the amount of calls for service that are true on the 3 area commands. Foothills, southwest, and northwest are going to stick with just graveyard and day shift. And this significantly assists us, again, based on the calls for service. So it allows our officers to be a little more proactive out there, doing a little more community policing, constitutional policing. So we were grateful enough to get the swing shift, 2 swing shifts like that, to help over that with the calls for service. So to answer your question.
What are those hours that, now, would you repeat again, which ones are going to be overlapping areas?
So you're really gonna break this one down, huh? So it's 8 to 8, and then 8 to 8, and then this, like week 1, they are working 4 hours. So on like week 1, they come in 4 hours later, and then we'll leave 4 hours early that day on the swing shift. The day shift will come in 4 hours later, and then on their Friday leave 4 hours early or something like that. So just so that balance of the actual 40 hours kicks in. As far as the swing shift, they come in at 1500, and on the days they're supposed to just for the 4 hours, I believe on their Monday, right? They come in at 5 o'clock and they leave at midnight, or 1 o'clock. Sorry, 0100. So and it breaks down on their first week, right? On the first week. So again, it's a little complicated, but the people that did know exactly the hours they have to get in. But
So it's actually simple, 8 to 8 and 3 to 3 is, and then you've got to figure in an 8-hour shift in there, depending on which week 1 or 2.
Oh, and there's a 3 to 3.
And it'll be something that, so that goes into effect September 13th?
17.
17th.
November, did you say?
September.
September 17th.
September 17th. So then once it's in practice and once it's in play, you can come to the council and come to your officers and say, what does your shift look like this week? What are you working this week? How's it working? How are you feeling? How's it going? So that's one of those discussions that we encourage you to have here in these forums.
All right, so the issue is the person that comes out at 8 o'clock at night, the officer, and leaves at 8 the next morning. What we were talking about is when does he go to court?
Yep, you might go to court at 9 o'clock that morning. So that's going to have to be taken into consideration.
You can have night corrections.
A lot of the officers, with some regularity, though they have an 8-hour shift, are working 10 or 12 hours. 'Cause
Already.
They're racking up a lot of overtime. Has there been a study of the departments that have had the 12-hour shifts that have been implemented for some time, that this saves overtime for the department?
I'm going to say generally yes. Don't quote me on that, but from the studies that I've looked at in Kentucky and the studies that were provided to us by Dr. Weiss, who did ours, overtime should go down. The wild card, as we just talked about, is court. But generally, and you use less staff. If you're working 12 hours, you don't need as many people, and I'm guessing that's why a lot of agencies are going to 12-hour shifts as well, because staffing levels across country are low, so they're trying to maximize their workforce.
Yes. Well, I guess maybe this my question was answered, but anyway, what I'm trying to say that you guys can work no overtime too, right? Well, it's outside.
There is a salary cap, or, I'm sorry, there's an overtime cap.
Or you
Yes, yes, sir.
can have your own business too, having 4 days.
I don't. I don't have a business, but I don't.
So if an officer
Wait,
has an outside job, it has to be approved by the chief, and they have to submit that to the department. So,
Well, but private, oh, yes, that's right, you're right. I'm aware of that.
And it's done annually.
So now, community policing, I don't think that ever will be, I can remember way back 1968, 69. That was really community policing. What is it right now? I know one, also training. 2 rookies, 1.5 years on the force. Batch ended 46 and 47. Well, of course, they are under changing grade of command. Well, commander will respond, no. I have all kinds of documentation. Now, another, Commander Riviera, is he around, Commander Riviera?
I'm all that
Talk
up.
to you. Why you didn't answer my call?
I did, I've spoken to you.
Well, right.
You've done everything but had breakfast together, Tad, huh?
Yeah, that's a lieutenant. You know what it's about it, right?
That's my job. My job is to
What
make
is
you guys know.
courtesy? Some courtesy. JJ Gregor told me, oh, he's also JJ trained, he was training carbon at academy. That's what he told me. And that his two guys were so badly. I'm not gonna go to detail because possibly Chiram Kennedy will take it. So, well, he says he is authority. But anyway, there's so many different little things, but then from small fire, they become large fire, right? If you start missing, well, that also has to be crazy, you know? Has to do with community policy. If that would be nice if commander would answer, or, but, anyway.
But you would agree we're taking a step forward, right? I mean, based on our conversation, at least, right? You've come and seen me in person, we stopped and
Well,
spoken.
yes, I have actually.
Yeah.
I just happen to have. And that will go 15 feet, then sergeant, come over, people and sergeant, that's 5 feet, and then statue is different too. And that's training. Lieutenant has to act sergeant of a parking violation and border block.
A couple of quick observations. Is this overtime after 8 hours?
what is this, what do you mean this?
Well, is the pay overtime after 8 hours?
No,
Because if you're going to a 12-hour shift?
40 hours within a work.
Also, I think that anybody that comes into these CPCs or the police department, minimum age should be 21. I've also wondered what it is that you don't understand about constitutional policing. And I'd like to know why the murders by Albuquerque police have not been addressed.
I'd like to know why we're paying outside people to write policy. When we have 2 deputy chiefs who should be very, very capable of doing this, and if they're not, they need to be removed from the payroll, and maybe that they can be answering calls if they're not capable of writing policy that can be implemented and reviewed and go through this process with the monitor, that we're going out and hiring outside people to do it? I'd like to get an answer to that. And I thought the chief was going to be here tonight, but he's not here because I was going to ask him. Why are we paying these people if they can't implement and write policy? They should be, what are they doing then?
So police officers are technical writers, right? That's
I
like
understand that.
asking a teacher who teaches social studies to then go and teach math. It's a different criteria, even though it's in the same realm, there isn't always that expertise.
I understand that you might need an HR person to consult, to write these policies. But I'm a professional person myself. I've written plenty of policy, and I wasn't hiring HR people to do it.
It's a really...
And this is a fair question, and I'd like to have an answer to
I
it.
can answer this. So, we did write our own policies. We looked at a lot of other departments' policies and used that as a baseline. But the primary writing of the policies came from the upper level staff. I think Selena showed you that bubble chart where we get input from the rest of the department and all of our stakeholder groups. We hired Judge Garcia as that external expert to look at it from a different way, from that constitutional policing way, and from a perspective that only a judge would have. So to answer your question, yes, we did write our own policies, but we did hire some experts along the way to refine those and get them to where they needed to be.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to make a comment just as another citizen, also I've been a professional person, is the way APD was operating before the Department of Justice scrutiny, I want outside people doing it, frankly, because APD was not doing it very well. So that's from another committee person's perspective.
Thank you.
I think the monitor forced the issue as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he definitely said the way you're doing things now isn't working. And you need some outside help, you need somebody different, you need a different set of eyeballs. And that different set of eyeballs needs a completely different perspective than we have within the department. Because
And I agree with that. But my question is, why aren't we making changes then at the upper levels of APD so that APD is capable of writing their own policies? That's really, I think, the basis of my question.
I think
I'm off on another subject. Early on in your presentation, you talked about various types of calls. It was pretty much policy and procedure to dispatch the SWAT team. And that now, I guess they're not being called. There was a number of, one was hostage, suicide, there were 3 or 4. I'm assuming that if it was appropriate that the SWAT team would be called in, like in a hostage situation. It's just not SOP that they're automatically sent out up front now? Is that the change in policy?
well, we've changed, so in a hostage situation, we've changed the way that they would go to that. So we have to have the proper people with the proper tools before just sending in pieces of it. So instead of sending in a puzzle piece and a puzzle piece and a puzzle piece and a puzzle piece, we send in the entire puzzle. So that way the whole thing is there and it's not in pieces as you're going into that situation, which makes it safer for that individual and it makes it safer for the officers.
So you actually have like a team going in, you're not...
And not just like a member, a piece, or 2 members, or, it's much more coherent.
And Selena, just add to that, the SWAT team now has developed a matrix. It's like a scoring chart for every call out to determine whether or not the SWAT team is actually going to go out to a call based upon criteria and a score sheet. And that score sheet is a part of every file and it gets reviewed by the Force Review Board to determine whether or not it is appropriate for the SWAT unit to be called out to a particular scene. So that is new in the SWAT policy. So there's it's really like it's a score sheet. And if if the person is a felon, if they're barricaded, if they have a weapon, all of these points go in, and once there's a threshold reach, then SWAT is activated.
And before, and just to add on, Mr. Harness, before that happens, the incident commander has to make that assessment and relay that to whomever they're calling SWAT and everything they have. And then they gauge that score to see if it matches. And if it doesn't, they'll simply say it's not, doesn't meet our matrix and
And I think some of the results of that is what you're seeing is those SWAT calls are lasting much, much longer. You're seeing SWAT calls within Albuquerque that are 18 hours, 12 hours, really kind of long calls, and it's because you're trying to talk to that individual and set up resources and get them to utilize those resources as opposed to maybe just rushing into a building or whatever it might be. So I think it's important as a community that you assess that as well, is that you think, well, my street was blocked off for 18 hours, and you weigh that in your mind.
So is there a real process now for recommendations from the CPC? So when the CPC has a recommendation and they hand it off to you, how long until the chief reviews it and you get input back?
So it's no longer going to me, it's going to go to Nicole.
Okay, so then what?
And then Nicole is going to email within 5 days. I think the process says within 5 days, and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
That they'll respond in writing, that they have received it, and then ask me any follow-up questions. If there's follow-up questions, that depends on the council, on how quickly those could get answered. It might be I'm not quite sure I understood the meaning of this, or what actual resources did you have in mind when you sent this forward, this recommendation? How maybe expansive do you want it to be? Do you want it to be every area command? Do you want it to be just one portion, just the Valley area CPC, or just the Northeast? And then from there, I think we have 20 business days, once that response comes back to us, of those questions answered, of what the implementation process is. So if it needs to go out for a bid for proposal, there's some money involved, that's been done. Or if it needs to be sent to the technical IT team, the computer team, that's been done. And then that comes back, and then I think we have 60 business days in total to take final action. So it's kind of with deadlines and more sustained.
So a couple of months ago, the Valley did a recommendation that had to do with like dictation. What's happened with that?
And Nicole just started working on that one.
I did, I just received it on
Last Friday, we had that meeting?
Monday, and then I sent it to the group on Tuesday with some additional questions of which, because they said that they had researched a company, so I asked about a research company, and then they sent back the information on which company they looked at. And so from there, we did outreach to our IT manager as well as the that company. So that's where it's at right now.
So Jim, it just got turned in? Okay, all right. I figured more progress had happened. Okay.
Were you gonna have your IT specialist look at that also?
IT manager.
IT manager.
Yeah, I've got a question for Mr. Slauson. You're also in charge of the records department, right?
I am.
Okay, I got a question for you. I discovered some activities going on in late 2014, and then a special order from the chief was written on March 9th of 2015, and that was to all department personnel. Here, about 6 weeks ago, I discovered that seems to have disappeared in fleet services when one of your internal policies and procedures review board was meeting. They were looking over the fleet services department of ABQ.
The policy?
Right, and that policy wasn't there. That special order was not there. A few weeks ago, I did a inspection of public records request for any information on that policy being distributed through the department. And I even gave the records department a copy of that special order. After 15 days, they spent 5 minutes looking for the records. They didn't even supply me a copy of that special order. They said no records existed. How is that possible?
I'm not exactly sure what special order
Special
you're
order
looking for.
1516.
Okay. I mean, I can certainly go back and take a look. I'm not aware of the IPA request, if that's how you placed your request,
Well, you sit on the Policy and Procedures Review Board, right?
which has nothing to do with IPA, yes.
No, it has nothing to do with IPRA,
Right.
but at the Policies and Procedures Review Board, one of the members brought up the subject that this policy was missing.
Again, I don't know specifically what you're referring to.
Special Order
Can I answer
1516.
that,
Sure, go ahead.
So the way that it works with our special orders, what happens is if we get a special order for whatever reason that comes in, let's say it comes in
This is from the
today.
chief.
Right. We have numerous special orders that come in.
Right.
So let's say we get a special order today for whatever it is, a change in our uniform.
Right.
They'll send it out, and later on, if there's a policy change, that policy change after the special order supersedes the special order. Does that make sense?
Sure, but there would be some kind of a paper trail.
They are
They are all
archived, but
law.
you have to, it depends on what special order you're talking about. So
It had to do with the licensing of new patrol cars.
the
I
license,
discovered that the potential 72 patrol cars were being driven around the street without license plates.
okay, I know what special order you're talking about. Yes, it was put out, that special order was put out.
Then why could I not get any information from
What
the
what we can do is we can look.
And why did this information not come up in the policies of the fleet services? Nearly a year and a half later.
So what we can do is we can check to see, it's going to be archived. That special, all those special orders are archived in the department. So we would have to go back, research the date on it, and pull a copy of that special order. But I'm pretty sure that what happens is that when, and I know which special order you're talking about because I read it, that there has been a policy change since then that has actually stated what was on that special order. So now it would become policy.
Well, that's not what I was told by a member of the Policy and Procedures Review Board when they met roughly 3 months ago.
Yeah,
I
I can't.
think that Mr. Harrison's concerns will be addressed once CBCs are funded, because those assignments have been completed, and they will be a part of the next meeting. I guess my question would be, if you had a copy of the order that you supplied to the ABQ, why would you give them a copy?
I'm sorry, what?
I said, if you supplied a copy of the order to ABQ for reference, why would you need another copy? You already have it.
Well, I filed an IPRA request, so that means if they have a copy of that policy, they have to supply it to me. They came back and said they had no record, nothing.
So that's a perfect example of the community concerns that can be brought to the independent councils and then looked at independently. You saw Art that knew of, Lieutenant Sanchez that had familiarity with that. And they said, okay, well, let's put our heads together, let's go figure out what this community concern is, let's go find it, and let's work on this. So Mr. Harrison might not have gotten your question answered through records, but we're gonna get it answered through these gentlemen. So that's how this should
What
work.
I can do, sir, is the sergeant here actually pulled it up right away and it came up, the special order you're talking about. So what I can do, if you give me your information when we're done, I would be more than happy to print one out.
I don't necessarily need a copy of the special order itself. The question here is the department following the law? And the law is Inspection of Public Records Act. That's a big question here.
Well, I'd be happy to talk to you after. But I think that,
Well, and I understand where you are, sir. You're a plaintiff in a lawsuit that concerns us right now. Big lawsuit.
I'd like to ask a question now, and this has been several months ago, but I attended a CPC meeting. I've attended these in all the commands. And I went to one at the Southeast Area Command, and like I said, this has been several months ago that I went. And in fact, I know it was back in the spring, because they were talking about that they had made policy recommendations and that they had submitted these recommendations to begin the process. So I was sitting there listening during this meeting, and I finally raised my hand and I said, how long ago did you guys submit these recommendations? And they sat there and looked at each other, and it turns out it had been over a year, and they had yet to hear a single thing from APD or the chief or anybody, and I found that rather concerning. I'm like, this is supposed to be our voice, and I'd like to know whatever came of that. I haven't gone back to another Southeast Area Command meeting to ask, but that's what I was told, and I'm almost certain it must have been this previous spring, because I was at the meeting, because they were saying it was last April, April of 2015.
So we saw that with that chair, he had then quit, and we had a new chair, so the new chair had to get the recommendations. We saw that APD was not doing well in responding to the community police councils, so we have since hired Nicole to be able to help, and that's her full-time job.
That's an
So
awesome thing to know.
This process, it was brand new for APD. We didn't know how much work it was going to take. We didn't know how many hours that was going to be. We didn't know what the influx of communication back and forth was going to look like. So now Nicole's on board, and she's getting trained super fast, and she's going to have you.
It'll be interesting to see. Hopefully the response will be a little bit quicker, because a year, that's a long time.
Right.
I just wanted to correct something. I think I misspoke. I believe I said Mr. Slauson was a plaintiff in a large lawsuit over IPRA issues. What I meant to say is a defendant.
Anyone can get sued, Charlie. You should know that.
Yes, I do.
This is something I think was a complaint of all the CPCs, all 6, is that we submitted recommendations and we weren't getting responses. And I think it came up at one of our recent summits to come up with a time frame that we had to be responded. And I think hiring this lady was part of that process.
That's good to know. I appreciate
Yeah, I think we've made some real progress in that area.
I could add, that was a complaint in the very first summit meeting we had with Mr. Harms. It was also reiterated in our Department of Justice training sessions that we had. And not only did it culminate in Nicole, but also our city councilors have obligated 3 positions to work with us also. And that is in development.
I'd like to say one thing else to Mr. Slauson. Yes, Mr. Slauson, anybody can be sued, that's true. But I just want everybody to know that Mr. Slauson tried to get out of this as being a defendant in this lawsuit, and the judge denied that.
Any other questions related to this topic? Jim, it's your...
That's it.
Oh, who's a fellow back here?
No, I was just going to, the last time I checked with the chair on the Southeast CBC, Ron seemed pretty content that the process has gotten better and we're up to
That's
speed on
good.
it.
I'm glad to know that.
And then also this is helping out, so it was a learning experience, but we're pleased since the last meeting, and I think it's only going to get better.
Well, thank you, Selena, Bill, glad you're all there. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move so.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.